So, happy post Valentine's Day, everyone, or for those of you like us, happy Forever Alone Day.
Love shies forever.
Yeah. So, I'm Adam. I'm the person that is responsible for the slight delay. Some accidental boomerism occurred off screen.
This
Just
is
say we had something in planned and unfortunately blew up in all of our faces. We did, however, had a good time and we had some laughs that you will not see.
Everyone else might want to introduce themselves.
I'm Alabast. I'm Alabaster, one of the jackasses here to read this for all of your entertainment purposes.
My name's Biggie. I'm here to have my brain melted again.
Learning more about the communist gay robots. Yep.
Yes.
I'm Randall Frag, and don't celebrate Valentine's Day because Sigmata has taught me that it's all part of the great fascist corporatist conspiracy, man.
And we have one new guest for this particular episode.
Hello, I go by Greg. I am just here to look at this, despair, and laugh in agony.
Fun fact, he was actually brought on at I think 3 a.m. in the morning from a YouTube chat talking about Warhammer.
That I found. He's my friend.
It wasn't even that good.
I think it was. It wasn't that. I think wasn't he streaming up? What the fuck was it again? I think he was doing Fallout New Vegas.
Okay, so there's a little bit of a plug for whoever that is, and Biggie, you
Cloak
actually
and Dagger.
Cloak and Dagger. Hey, Biggie, you did mention that we should also plug in the one person who actually got to watch us.
Oh yeah, we should mention the user Sexy Gexy, who gave us positive commentary and encouraged us to check out some other Stigmata related bullshit.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sexy Gexy, and your dedication to Gex has been acknowledged. And who knows? If you're lucky, he might just get a new game in 2019.
I mean, they're making Bubsy. I can't see why not. I can't believe they're still making Bugsy. So when last we left off on Sigmata, we left on, I think, a reject from Naruto who's about to commit some police brutality on maybe like his uncle or something.
If I could just add one little comment, like, just baffled by the State of the Union picture. Why is it the picture of this cartoon fascist covered in like a weird rainbow?
I think it's supposed to represent, those old. Okay, this is for those of you who are not boomers, so you're Zoomers and you're you're younger millennials. Back in the day, there used to be a little thing called a test card because TVs they weren't on all the time, 24/7. That wasn't a thing. So if you were, yep. I think he's just trying to mimic a test card. Not poorly.
So bad. I can't tell. It just looks so bad. I can't tell. Like, it confused me.
I think he just got the lowest quality JPEG image and then kind of put it under transparency mode. I think we got a bit of an art critic today. That's actually very nice.
Yes.
The image for today is Paul Blart, SS officer, which I really hope that's what the next Paul Blart movie is. It's like a grim historical World War II movie, but then Paul Blart is just stuck right in the middle of Nazi Germany.
I'm just now envisioning Paul Blart 3, where he goes to basically the mirror universe from Star Trek. It just becomes this.
I'm just so curious. Like, I thought like this is supposed to be the right wing death squad, but I'm curious to why they're not using guns. Because they believe in the Second Amendment to shoot people? Why are they using batons like pussies?
Because Paul Blart's commanding officer didn't trust him with a gun, so they just gave him the batty sticks.
Alternatively, it could be that, well, with a gun you can't. With a gun you can kill them, but with a bat you get to feel the crack. You get to feel the crack of their bones because you're a sadistic ass.
So we're going with the hypothesis that that's why they keep using the batons on those random hobos from last episode?
Yeah.
Yes.
Also, hey, since you spotted it, Greg, notice that the buildings are in two different perspectives. The first trio behind the one Paul Blart with the machete, and then the second one is at a different angle to the Paul Blart with the shield, who is also at a different angle.
The Dutch angle doesn't even work because the guards and the men are in the right perspective.
Also,
almost like the person who drew this is a hack.
The person who wrote this is a hack, and we're about to see some. Have we no sense of decency? Well, I don't think the writers have any sense of decency since they support terrorism.
Take it away, Adam.
So, the American history of Sigmata diverges from ours in 1954, which we're about to go through alternate history, which is going to be interesting in the Chinese sense. Wisconsin Senator Joseph McCarthy goes uncensored for his outrageous witch hunt against alleged Soviet sympathizers and supposedly blackmail-prone homosexuals that had infiltrated the State Department and other branches of government. Basically, what they're going through is if Wisconsin's own Joe McCarthy didn't go down the toilet, we'd all become fascist for some reason.
Remember, censorship works.
I thought the whole point, though, I thought in the end there were a shit ton of communists in the State Department.
If you ever wondered why the Soviet Union were able to get the bomb within 5 years, yeah, we had more holes than the only country that had more holes than us was probably the UK, because they had the Cambridge 5.
And I could be talking out of my ass here, but didn't Hollywood at the time too, even to this day, have a fuckload of communists in it?
They do have a very strong radical left element inside of them, yes. That's why they still support pedophile Roman Polanski.
Go on, Adam, Go on, read.
So, emboldened by the success of his witch hunt and not being made basically a drunk, he ran for president on a platform of paranoid anti-communism, which every party was stringently anti-communist. I don't see the big deal. In 1960, after winning the primary battle against Richard Nixon, they just realized and fucked up because Joe McCarthy was a Democrat. You fucking idiots. You fucking idiots.
No, this is because this author, Chad Crawler, he can't realize that the Democrats can't do anything wrong because right is bad.
He probably doesn't know that Strom Thurmond used to be a Democrat. I honestly believe that if you told him that, Chad Walker would probably say, "Fuck you, Dad," and then begin sobbing.
Like, son, back in the day, the Democrats used to be very racist. I mean, Strom Thurmond was a Democrat. Fuck you, Daddy! I don't believe it! Hillary does nothing wrong!
Insert Slay Queen and sobbing into a latte. And defeating John F. Kennedy in the general election. I don't think... actually, Joe McCarthy might have had a chance against Kennedy. He had some charisma of his own. I don't think he'd win, though. He became president of the United States. McCarthy's one-term presidency was by most accounts a domestic and international disaster that planted the seeds of costly wars against several Soviet proxies throughout the late 60s, 70s, and 80s that left the United States, along with several of its allies, depleted of generations of fighting men.
Just quick question. How can, in the span of 4 years, you start off several, just from like an American standpoint, like Congress still has to approve of of calling of all this stuff. Like,
this implies that Chad Walker passed 6th grade in fucking social studies.
Also, that tends to be after one costly war, people tend to not want to fight more war.
I mean, we're still feeling the effects of that one war.
Yeah, I mean, we're still feeling Vietnam, and we had the easiest hell Gulf War to bring ourselves back up after that.
Like, to give you an idea, the reason this doesn't work is there's so many problems. The biggest is, you already mentioned it, Congress is the one. Now, what Chad Walker, the dummy who couldn't even pass 8th grade, I said 6th grade, technically it's 8th grade social studies, would probably argue instead is, well, how did Lyndon Johnson get worse? And in reality, what happened was he was able to pull a 90-day undeclared war using, what was it, the Tonkin Gulf incident? Basically, it gave him enough time to kind of get enough congressmen on his side to declare war. But because of that, a president can really only do that sort of shit for about 90 days before he has to show up to Congress to ask for it or stop.
Yeah. Also, while there is executive power and that stuff like that, just the American people just being completely okay with the president just ignoring every single regulation, just declaring war because a felt locker.
And
you don't
go on.
You don't understand. Communism bad.
Oh, yeah.
But even back then, people were questioning the Korean War.
Yeah, that one.
What the fuck do we care about Korea?
Yeah.
The big one was, what was the point of fighting it if we didn't even win?
Also, another one was, hell, we were even questioning why we went into World War One. That was an incredibly unpopular war.
There's a reason why America went into isolationism in the 20s and mid 30s. So, yeah, McCarthy having 4 years, Walker, unless you're going to insert more bullshit, that doesn't fucking work. Also,
and how does he plant the seeds? How does he plant the seeds of war? Like, what does that mean?
He might have heard that at one point that John F. Kennedy was kind of responsible a bit for Vietnam by sending in advisors that Ben Johnson kind of sent more guys in for. Like, maybe he heard that but didn't understand it because there's no way in hell he would. But
I would imagine.
Oh, go on.
No. We have to remember this. We have to remember Chad Walker probably has intelligence on par with ADF, just a little slightly higher. So he's not going to understand these concepts.
No, you're getting it all wrong. You see, McCarthy was like Johnny Appleseed. He was just walk around the globe throwing around war seeds everywhere.
So he's planting grenades and landmines in the ground.
And then, yeah, but instead of growing apples, they grow war trees, which just drop bombs.
That sounds awesome. Can we plant war trees now?
I'm now envisioning homebrewing that in D&D. Basically, it was a gnome and elf invention.
I want a tree that's hanging. I want a tree that's hanging with Glocks and ARs. That would be amazing.
So also, don't you like how he kind of hinted that over 20 years the U.S. just lost basically the same amount of men that France did in World War I?
Yeah.
Like, I don't mean in numbers, I mean proportionally, because that was one of the reasons France started to really, no offense, France, but you did kind of decline, and I don't blame you for declining because of that.
No,
it's because Joe McCarthy didn't update the military, and he was just tying a bunch of soldiers together to make ships to ship people off to Vietnam.
I'm just now envisioning Joe McCarthy saying, no, you do not go in with this, holding an M16. You go in with this, and he just holds a sharp rock.
So my question is, did we just adopt the Russia strategy and just throw men at the problem until it fixes itself? But it
probably. We're getting sidetracked because of this complete incompetence. Let's at least get through this. His domestic legacy, however, was normalizing the concept of the interior threat in American politics. The notion that America's failures of industry and military adventure were not due to ineffective policy, failed diplomacy, or a refusal to adapt to evolving markets, but rather due to an international conspiracy of Soviets, homosexuals, immigrants, ungrateful minorities, and effete globalists committed to destroying the American way of life from the inside. Now, go on.
The one thing, everything else is a crock of shit, but isn't the idea of effete globalists destroying America on the inside? I feel like that's a tangential threat, though.
It is partially true. I would say it's at least a little bit.
Some truth to it.
I would also.
But not to the...
Sorry, I just wanted to point out one thing because secondary history sped here. The U.S. industry didn't start falling apart until the fucking 70s, Walker.
That was because of the resurgence of Japan and Germany and due to the American auto industry being lazy and just not giving a shit.
Well, we also had what's called stagflation starting to really rear its ugly head at that point.
Oh God, God love you, Jimmy. You had a hard. Let me start reading.
Oh, I don't mind.
Despite McCarthy's abject failure as a leader, the interior threat became a winning political platform and became the popularly accepted narrative as the United States domestic and international situation stagnated and devolved.
Before we continue, notice that Chad Walker cannot write anything shorter than 2 fucking lines in terms of sentences.
God, this is veterans who served in tours of bloody and fruitless wars return home that their factory job had been taken by a woman, a minority worse, or still an immigrant, often a refugee from the very countries they've been fighting. Chinatowns and little Mexicos were popping up everywhere, interracial couples embraced in broad daylight, and nobody was speaking English anymore. You realize if nobody was speaking English, speaking the primary language in your main country, you realize how much of a disaster that would be brewing.
Also, why is Chad Walker trying to highlight these as bad things? By his logic, these are good things.
No, they're good things, but those stupid homeless vets just don't know it because they're stupid people from wasteland ghouls, and they're not part of the superior future.
My thing is, isn't that's how Hitler helped raise the power, embittered veterans that had nothing to return to. That's how a lot of effective insurgencies and authoritarian governments rise in.
Also, you're telling me that the United States would regularly lose these proxy wars? Even in his own mind, Chad cannot see any place that he is remotely associated with win.
The thing is, if we weren't tied up the way we were in Vietnam, we could have just murdered the fuck out of Vietnam with impunity.
To give you an idea, if, say, instead of it being Vietnam, it was Cuba, we would have kicked Castro's ass. Wouldn't it have even been a fight?
Nope, but we just didn't want to get the whole international thing going.
The country they had bled for, they were told, was not one they returned to. While they were fighting for the free world, traitors back home opened the gates for a soft invasion. Refugees welcome! Whether they believed it or not, both major political parties in the United States seized on the seething resentment and sense of betrayal this massive voting bloc felt. Oh my God, this is Orange Man bad.
He's also a delusional third party, or the type that's like, they're both the same. And sometimes the parties are both the same. It usually depends on the candidates, but they do have slightly different themes.
Yeah.
Is if apparently we were getting incredibly xenophobic, anti-into it, why was there such a flood of immigrants then?
Because my money. Like, to give you an idea, down in Mexico, the same job would only get me like 1/5 of what you pay me up here, even though you treat me like shit. At least I walk home alive rather than dead in a ditch.
But yeah,
I'm questioning why haven't there been like stricter immigration policies?
Because the idea that
didn't want it.
Sorry about that. Can you repeat it?
They wanted to exploit because certain parties wanted to exploit short-term political gain at the expense of their major working class voters.
I was also going to chime in that I think it's because Chad Walker intellectually can't understand the concept of restraining illegal immigration.
Politicians won office by virtue of one-upping each other in a number of civil liberties they would often trample in order to address the rot within. What about Obama going to expand on the Patriot Act?
Oh yeah, that was hilarious.
Black man good. Obama black man good.
He's Black Jesus. It's not like he did anything wrong by using his Chicago-style politics at any point. Even though
Fast and Furious. Fast and Furious. What was that?
Maybe
the hardliners won elections often in a landslide. It wasn't long until McCarthy's purge of Soviet sympathizers was mild compared to the defense of real America that mounted against the interior threats. All right, Biggie, I know you're a Canadian. Can you read about the decline of our former good nation?
Biggie?
And Biggie's dead.
Did
Greg.
Did he fuck up?
Yep, sorry about that. I was just going to say, what page is that on?
We're currently on page 35, and we're at the first order of business.
All right. All right. That's okay. So you said 35. Okay, there we go. The first order of business was outing the foreign-controlled elitists and provocateurs who had infiltrated the media. Oh God, fake news. The media and public education systems. Journalists who were critical of the American foreign and domestic policy were either detained as a public menace or terrorized into silence by vigilantes.
Or in the case of some losers, made up completely, and then when they got caught, they said, no, it happened. Please believe me.
No. They were terrorized into silence by people sending Trump memes.
So my question is so we shouldn't be concerned about foreign nations going to send an inordinate amount of monies into our public education system?
I was actually thinking, like, why is getting rid of George Soros a bad thing?
Because he's a Jew is why. Get it right.
Well, there's a difference between being a Jew and a vampire, and I'm not sure that he's the first one.
I can't believe the U.S. government cyberbullied Cenk Uygur to shut down the Young Turks.
No, they shut him down because he believes that the Armenian genocide never happened.
Oh, all right. Well,
I still love that those fuckers are legitimately named after a radical nationalist movement.
Okay, we have to keep this on track.
This is Biggie's time now. Let's go.
School curriculum was stripped of multicultural brainwash and anti-American revisionist history to be replaced with lessons on American exceptionalism and civic duty. Once the leftist destabilizing ideas were neutralized and the new nationalist message had time to the United States was unified and ready to enact more drastic measures to purify the country. The machinery of mass incarceration and deportation was the great industrial product of the late 1970s and the early 80s. Foreigners crossing the American borders or arriving at American ports were greeted by enormous internment camps full of immigrants who had dared to outstay their welcome. Railroads and trucks that no longer supported dying industries were refitted for mass human transport. So, are they just saying all the truck drivers out of work for just...
The best part about the best part about all of this is I would say it's kind of funny that Chad thinks like half of these ideas are innately bad.
Like, I'm gonna say, like, isn't it just easier to kick them out instead of having them live in your fucking house? Because I would think you would have to still pay taxes for a standard of living for all the people in the fucking internment camps.
You know what's fucking hilarious? There are those that are stuck in those detainment camps that actually refuse to get out because the conditions there are still fucking better than what they escaped from. and also, why is having lessons on Americans being amazing? Not retarded, but amazing. Exceptionalism does not mean retarded always.
Because of the left, you have to hate your own nation. Only non-white nations are.
And what about civic duty? I mean, a decent idea. I mean, I never got taught about civic duty.
The United States was founded partially on Roman ideals, and one of them was civic duties.
Because no, fuck it. You shouldn't do anything. You should have the brown person clean up your trash and whatnot. That's what I do, Chad Watt.
Wait, where are we now?
I think we're at the most vital component of this project, which I think is yours.
Is that me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The most vital component of this project was the establishment of the Freedom Fist.
What?
I said it sounds so stupid yet so awesome. A complete merging of the United States military and state law enforcement agencies to accommodate the belief that America should no longer distinguish between threats international and internal. legal basis for the Freedom Fist requires the nullification of the POSE Comitis Act, which prohibited the military from being used on U.S. citizens, and a complete revision of Title 10 of the United States Code, which previously outlined the powers and limitations to the various branches of military.
I kind
Wait.
of go on.
They're a rewriting of the Constitution.
Yeah, because there's that whole, amendment. There's that whole kind of amendment that says you shall not place your soldiers in civilians' homes.
Also,
well, that's the Amendment 3 to prevent things like the Quartering Act. Yeah.
Also, this would require. You could say that this caught the executive and the legislative branch, but what about he's completely forgetting about the judiciary branch.
Who due to the effects of early justices like Marshall, were able to enact a lot of power just based on the early presidents being tending to be hands off. So he'd have to rely on that. The Constitution is a living document, so you can negate parts of it, but it takes decades for that because you have to get, I think it's 66% of all 50 states to agree.
Yeah.
Chad Walker, how did you fucking pass middle and high school? This is stuff you're required to know.
This is why teaching government and civics is good for schools, guys. So we don't get idiots like Chad Walker.
I think it's my turn to read.
This is still technically democracy, and if apparently the people that Chad is saying are the people who are most upset by all this change are specifically angry veterans. So if that's the majority population.
The move was shocking. The veterans who supported, or at least abided, every action leading up to the establishment of the Freedom Fist were also the most fierce and unhinged opponents of the attacks on the Pulse Communitatis and Title 10. An emulation of the very regimes that they lost so many years of their life and so many of their friends fighting against. These men, many of them old or old beyond their years, decried what they saw as a violation of the Constitution and even advocated armed insurgency in the face of tyranny. They were far too late.
Here's the problem. Oh, sorry. I was just going to point out that it's fitting that veterans who have fought and died for the country apparently know more about the Constitution than Chad fucking Walker.
I don't know shit, but aren't a lot of U.S. politicians a lot of veterans themselves? So, wouldn't there be somebody at least in power to stop?
It's a common trend, yes. And there's another problem with this. Another thing that Chad Walker seemingly forgot, or maybe he did because it does fit his desire to be a violent man baby, is that the Constitution is treated by the Founding Fathers as a contract between the governor and the governed. And if they violate the natural rights granted to the people have the rights to take out their AR-15s and gun them down in the streets violently.
Oh my god, but isn't that terrorism?
Oh, it's the mandate of heaven, American style.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
For children, many who had become young adults were indoctrinated by the nationalist message. The public voices who would amplify their message were languishing in Wait, the nationalist message or the old people message?
The fake news message.
Were languishing in prison, and those millions of immigrants who, in their own way, believed in and benefited from the more humanitarian components of America's founding documents, so not the stuff about killing the savage Indians or something, were stuffed into tractor trailers, racing towards internment camps. The old men were once again totally alone and living in a country they no longer recognized. Those who publicly recanted their insurgent leanings were made officers of the Freedom Fist. Those who the Freedom Fist. I'm still cracking up over the Freedom Fist. It sounds like a
I'm just seeing
porn title.
It is Freedom Fist. It's like if you know the American Invasion movie with Chuck Norris. It sounds like something that a really desperate, really sleazy New Yorker would come up with. It's like, I saw this movie made by Menachem Golem. It was called American Invasion. Well, he was thinking, I got my wife and I got a couple people that could plow her, and I'll call it Freedom Fist. And one of the guys that I have in my employment team kind of looks like him if you put a wig on it. I can fill him for $100.
I was about
was gonna say it sounds like a GI Joe episode.
I was gonna say. Oh, God.
I was gonna say it sounds like a superhero team name. Now, would that be a Marvel or a DC name, though? Was the question.
Vertigo Comics, and it would be canceled on issue 2.
You're being optimistic there. You're being optimistic with only 2.
See, whenever I hear Freedom Fist, I hear Freedom Fries.
I think. Hold on. When I hear Freedom Fist, I think of. I think of this sadly as I vaguely feel like this is almost like a porno title, and this is like the Freedom Fister.
Oh, God.
I vote Freedom Fries as the episode title.
I voted for Freedom Fries.
I voted for Freedom Fries.
Hey, at least they told me up front they would kill me.
So those who refused were hunted down and died on their knees, unceremoniously executed in alleyways and stuffed into dumpsters.
Nazi Germany, exonerate their veterans, though? Wasn't that kind of a big thing for Nazi Germany?
I think he might be remembering that Hitler killed a lot of veterans in Night of the Long Knife.
That is true.
Let's not interfere with Chad's own better version of history.
Yeah.
So a few of the old men evaded execution and went into hiding. In Appalachian ghost towns, abandoned manufacturing...
Mama, take me home.
Abandoned manufacturing plants throughout the Rust Belt, indigenous lands in the Midwest and Southwest, and shelled-out ruins where ghettos once stood in cities along the East and West coasts. So what, they're just taking places like Camden, New Jersey, and just shelling it for artillery practice now or something?
What happened?
They're just bombing the shit out of Compton, I'm guessing.
Straight out of Compton, 50-meter shell coming straight up.
Oh, God. They huddled among squatters, refugees, and targeted populations who refused to tolerate the state's violence. They broke bread with people whose grievances with the regime eclipsed their own. Wherever they went, they heard the same thing. There has always been a revolutionary army on this continent, but for centuries you've been killing, imprisoning, humiliating, and deporting us. What?
He means the Native Americans.
The last time they fucking had anything like that was 1890 with the last of the Ghost Dance movement?
Geronimo, basically, and that was 40 or 50 of.
There's maybe the 1990 Wounded Knee protest, but that wasn't really a war.
No, guys, you don't understand. Antifa is a legitimate revolutionary movement.
That's who he was talking about?
I think so.
That's probably who he's talking about, yeah. Let's go with that.
So he's hoping Nazis will deport the Nazis, and I'm putting that in so many air quotes, it's not even fucking funny. Oh, God. So where was I? Something Revolutionary Army. The true resistance had arms. They had fighters. Most importantly, they did not have a plan, because Chad Walker is incapable of plans. Oh, I mean, they did have a plan. The old men swore allegiance to the movement, and they prepared quietly, patiently, for their last and most important tour of duty, helping to liberate and unleash the army of patriots and proletariats!
There we go! Ding, 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 ding. We have a commie buzzword.
And the best part about all of this is, don't you love how he expects fucking veterans to just hang out with these cafe communist trust fund fucks to teach them the army stuff?
Well, I think these are supposed to be, the poor, oppressed minorities. Because
so the actual sources that a communist revolution would come from, it wouldn't be from Leslie with his fucking $180,000 home, pretending that he actually cares about the poor. It'd be Jethro and Tyrone fucking teaming up and destroying the shit out of Leslie's home.
All right, guys, let's
great propaganda poster. Soviets, liberals, immigrants.
There's something wrong.
America under siege.
There's something wrong. They're missing two hands. They're forgetting black people and Jewish people.
I think that goes with immigrants.
It's maybe
they still forgot Jews.
Maybe the black people are represented by the clawed hands because they don't see black people as people.
Also, the art's terrible. their noses look awful. It looks like they've got all of their noses have been broken in a terrible bar.
Don't you love the expression on that guy? Let me zoom in because it's so bad. Look at the expression on that guy.
No, stop.
Oh no.
You may kill my wife and child. Don't.
And she's kind of like more confused than anything else. Like, what the hell's going on? And the baby, I think, is a doll that they found in a dumpster. I love the expression on that guy. It just gets funnier the longer I look at it.
Honestly, it'd be great for a profile, a shit poster profile pic, honestly.
No, don't.
Stop.
He has I could see his role being played by David Duchovny in the Sigmata movie.
I could even see the poster, the user title for this avatar, "Evil Bored White Man number 8972."
Okay, guys, I'm gonna top it off because that poster was funny, but we need to keep this on track.
You do have
the regime, real America, and punishment as a platform. The executive branch of the United States government in 1986 is derogatorily referred to as the regime. It did not introduce fascism to America, but simply inherited a cultural movement that was already decades underway. The administration has absolutely no ideological nexus.
Then why are you calling them fascist?
Just like Chad, its agenda can be summarized quite simply as consolidating all wealth and power to the president and his loyalist. Orange man bad. The regime's direct and indirect promotion of white supremacy, religious intolerance, and anti-Soviet paranoia do not reflect the ideological principles so much of it as it provides it with a highly effective avenues of usurping wealth, property, and power from the people.
Quick question: how are they getting all this money, wealth, and property and power by just being generally the Fallout America kind of culturally? Because poor people don't got a lot of money. There's a lot of them, so maybe in mass you get a decent amount, but not as much as what. Okay.
No. It's because they put on a bunch of government regulations and burdensome taxes, like in actual third world countries, to set up a labyrinthian system of bureaucracy to channel money to bureaucrats.
Oh, so it's like what Venezuela was trying to do before they got a retarded bus driver to rule over them.
Yeah.
So you mean much like California and rapidly approaching New York with its terrible taxes.
Don't worry, eventually we'll start. Don't worry, eventually we'll start declaring other people to be the governors of those states and ignore the actually elected ones.
This is not a secret agenda, nor do the president's pundits make an attempt agenda from the loyalists. So they just hire. Yeah, I'm just. So question here: how is it on debates or like anything on the TV that people are like? Wouldn't this be hard to sell the ruse that this is a real America if the president's just like, I don't, just give me money.
I just fleeced you all out of your money. I don't consider black people human. Look at them. Look at them. They don't pass the brown paper bag test.
No, they're using the real energy technology that they stole from the Nazis during the war, because Paul Blart stumbled into an Allied camp with the blueprints.
I
was looking for the bathroom.
You know what's sad? That's actually a more fun campaign idea than what's in here, because you could use Achtung Cthulhu for that.
So my question is, I thought the whole point of I thought part of how fascistic and communist regimes is due to the cult of personality.
It's one of those important things, yeah.
Most of those regimes will not come to fruition without a charismatic leader. Otherwise, you have a Vidku von Quisling that can only attain power by being a proxy of someone else.
Wait, do you think that Chad is confusing communist propaganda for Nazis? Because he might be trying that retarded idea of You know how how Soviet propaganda also really heavily focused on the many, and how it didn't just show people like Stalin being this godlike being, but it showed like dozens of other workers just single-handedly telling people like Hitler or Churchill to go fuck off. Do you think that might have been like? Do you think he's getting wires crossed because he doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about?
Me.
I just think he's dumb. He doesn't. This is
Where
a
were we?
historically ignorant person trying to write a alt history RPG.
I
And
think
it
we're
clear.
at, in fact, loyalists, Greg. Thank you for getting us such. We're gonna be stuck here for a while. Holy shit. So in fact, loyalists cheer on the regime even as it digs deep into their pockets, strips them of all their rights, and sacrifices them in endless wars. All efforts to expose the regimes as malignant and self-serving in order to undermine it have proven fruitless. How and why, if the president openly admits, yeah, I steal your fucking money?
The loyalists are dumb automatons who aren't actually real people, so you can gun them down
Actually, no.
in
Yeah,
mass.
actually, gonna say, like, keep reading.
Oh, loyalists already know the regime is corrupt. They just don't care as long as it continues to punish the enemies of real America. Oh, so you're saying they're the average dark side Phil paypig. Got it.
All 100 of them.
Who's reading Real America?
I think it's either Al, or actually no, Al went before, so I think it might be Biggie.
Yes.
Biggie. Biggie.
I think he got swallowed by the Canadian wilderness again.
Greg, you're up.
Yeah.
Real America is the cultural touchstone that loyalists venerate. It is the image of the white Christian nuclear family, which, to loyalists, is the atomic and subatomic building block of the country, and an anchor keeping America from getting swept into the maelstrom of globalism and chaos. Yet, since its inception, real America has not been an embodiment of an ideal so much as a control mechanism, a means of manipulating the people to do the bidding of whoever is cynical or desperate enough to weaponize it for political gain.
Wait, hold on. Wait, I thought the whole point of I thought one of the great things of getting out of poverty into middle class was having a strong, stable family. Though,
Also,
is Chad Walker against those things?
I think he is because he's probably a bitter asshole that's like chimping at the idea of owning a house because he's in his tiny little apartment in New York.
Well, no, this is Chad Walker. His fucking dad's paying everything for him.
You were supposed to read. You were supposed to read that, but you weren't there.
So anyway,
yeah, no,
go on.
I was just saying, Chad Walker. There's no fucking way this man pays for any. It's his fucking father. It's his father's money
It's
that's
his
propping
war
him up.
veteran father who makes a lot of money manipulating stock market prices on Coca-Cola and Disney.
No, all while smoking a pipe, and then every day going to hunt for his meat because he's that much of a.
All right, well,
since you missed the other thing, read At the Behest.
At the behest of those who thirst for power, profoundly cynical politicians, pundits, and preachers rally loyalists to defend real America from imaginary threats like foreigners, gay homosexuals, and Soviets in sheep's clothing. The foreigners, they say, have come to rob real America of its prosperity, deflower its daughters, and turn its grandchildren brown. The homosexuals, they say, threaten to convert real American sons into degenerates, too busy engaging in wanton sexual predation in the streets to support their families or defend their country. The liberals, they say, those twisted hybrids of coastal elitism and Soviet-style socialism, will plunder real America's coffers, strip it all of work of meaning, and funnel all of its wealth into social parasites.
Last one is totally true.
It is.
It's totally 100% true.
The current crop of liberals right now are that way, which is disgusting because I can call myself a liberal and look at this. And
don't you guys want universal income? God damn it, that fucking document from the Green Party was great. Or no, the Green Deal.
They do realize that the concept of that was a minimum wage, and that's been a thing since like the fucking 19th century.
All right, well, all those groups, they say, distract from the necessary battle the United States must do against the enemies of freedom throughout the globe, and their assaults on real America may as well be kinetic assaults on the brave men and women who serve the country.
That almost sounded like Chad Walker was saying that your average white person literally rapes him every day.
Okay, Randall, you should read in this because this is This is stuff that you should read in your conspiracy theorist.
It is a cocktail of cowardice, almost comically detached from reality.
Just like Chad Walker.
The tried and true real American loyalist cannot be swayed through reason because his ideology provides cognitive pathways to elude all confrontation.
Chad Walker.
Chad Walker. When his beliefs are inconsistent with the Constitution, he pivots from the flag to the cross.
Chad Walker, but replace cross with the rainbow flag.
When his beliefs are inconsistent with his rainbow flag, he pivots from the flag to the Constitution. When neither the flag or the rainbow flag can justify his actions, he pivots to crucial realism, social Darwinism, and free market economics.
My brown future, my demographic destiny.
My open borders.
When those forces don't appear to favor him, he lashes out as the victim of religious persecution, reverse racism, or global conspiracy.
The Jews!
Literally, all of these can be supplied to Chad Walker now.
So sexual minority persecution, straight up racism, or the capitalists.
No, global conspiracy. A lot of lefties also believe in really insane garbage.
Well, that's what the capitalist is, the international capitalist conglomerate with my Russia and the Putin and my oil companies.
For claiming to be pro sexual minorities, they often love to use homosexual slurs at people as a way to insult them.
The real American is almost always a victim of the very political punishments he advocates for, but he is so committed to lashing out at his perceived enemies that he will dutifully blow his own brains out in the off chance the resulting ricochet might harm the groups he's been instructed to punish.
Chad Walker has probably thought about doing this more than once.
He's probably been retweeted.
I just realized something. What he's saying is that everyone we're going to be fighting in the game has quite literally a hate boner for us,
and they're all horrible monsters. Unlike that really dorky dragon that you had as face, whose awkwardness was so cute we actually refused to kill him.
And also, one of us went and has started a budding relationship with.
I chose my name on him as a joke. Don't make it real.
We should mention for all you that don't understand, we're playing a campaign where we're bloodthirsty pirates, and our good GM here threw us a nerdy dragon who likes collecting Yu-Gi-Oh cards, and we just couldn't kill him for how pathetically cute he was.
Anyway, Adam, take it away.
So, real America presents itself as defiant last stand against the chaos of a modern world. But in reality, it's a vision of America as a shrill, cowardly, and reactionary shadow of itself. Real America is the fiction of that self-reflection, cultural evolution, and inclusion or weakness, instead of evidence of America's strength. By the way, that was not a sentence. That was a word salad.
I love how diversity is our strength.
Real America is a control mechanism, a mental shackle to put on good people and patriots to make them obedient slaves to the state. Real America is a social strategy of divide and conquer, turning urban and rural communities against each other, benefiting only those who define the divisions. Real America is the lie that this people's struggle is somehow different from people's struggles happening all over the globe. Real America is the nexus of American fascism. Which we actually did have American fascism, Chad Walker. Look up the fucking Silver Legion. That was a real thing.
The Wound was also a brief party.
Let's just go visit his local black shirt regiment.
Yeah, they became popular after the neo-Nazis died off due to how fucking stupid they looked and how plagued with FBI agents they were.
Democracy in distress. On paper, the United States of America technically remains a democracy. Much like technically Chad Walker did not commit statutory rape.
Just like how Chad Walker did not donate money to ISIS.
There are still elections in those places where the regime holds power and the loyalist sentiment is strong, but elections anywhere else are frequently suspended in the interest of public safety. There is still a constitution and a Bill of Rights guarantee the protection of citizens and non-citizens from the state. But the congressional majority has no appetite for leveraging their constitutional powers to hold the executive branch accountable for its violations, and the loyalist voters are not compelled to punish them for this. My question is, where is the judicial branch in all of this?
Chad Walker forgot that existed, and I'm actually highlighting how long that one fucking sentence is. It's the length of a paragraph. God damn you, Chad Walker.
There is still occasionally a vocal opposition party in Congress, though they hold less than a third of the congressional seats, and their presence does little more than grant the regime a veneer of representative free speech.
Careful,
liberals
that kind of
get the bullet too.
Also, careful, Al, you cut out near the end of the sentence. Basically, the veneer of representative government. By the way, Chad Walker, you seem to have forgotten that it wasn't until the Democrats got rid of things like the ability to filibuster that a minority party in that state could actually still affect policy. Good job, dummy. Good job.
Democrats can't ever do anything wrong. Just remember that.
Out of curiosity, it's going to be my turn next. You just want to skip? Do you want to skip some of this?
For legal reasons, I don't mind. Do we want to continue democracy and discretion, or do we want to move on to papers? Let's move on to a thing he ripped off. Papers, Pleased. You're gonna have to see a lot more of it later. But, yeah.
Can I get somebody while I read this part? Can I get somebody humming the theme to Papers, Please?
I would totally get out some music, but someone else can do it.
All right.
Does that work?
Okay, yes. The most ubiquitous expression of the regime's power are the soldiers of the Freedom First, or MASK, as they are frequently called by civilians. The Freedom Fist could be called militarized police force. Oh, no! You're too loud! Stop! Get out of my head!
I will say this. You called them Freedom First. That would be a much better name for the organization. Or how about just the simple Sons of the Patriots?
Well, what about
Sons of Liberty?
Yeah, but then they have to worry about Konami suing them.
Sons of the Patriots.
Sons of Liberty.
Patriot Patrol.
Or you can always name them after the name of the snake poster. You can name it after that.
It is a soldier. Soldiers occupy America.
You can name them Gadsden. You can name them the Gadsden Unit or something. I don't know.
All right. Its soldiers occupy American cities, manning security checkpoints, and busy. Oh fuck! I can't pronounce that word.
Oh, that's thoroughfares.
Somebody smarter. Patrolling the streets in armored personnel characters, APCs, crushing citizens' assemblies with brutal tactics, and demanding papers from virtually every immigrant, person of color, and unaccompanied.
Saudi Arabia.
I was about to say. What the fuck do they think? They think they're fucking women of the night? Why do you need to harass women?
By the way,
why would though, if America was turning into this fascistic nightmare, wouldn't there be people willingly fleeing this country, in fucking droves?
Yeah, you could go to Europe, stand.
Also, don't worry, Biggie. You might not have known what thoroughfare is, but I can tell you Chad Walker didn't, because he probably found out that another way to say traffic is thoroughfare. Using thesaurus.com.
I grew up in the woods of fucking Alberta, so it's a miracle I can fucking read, man.
By the way, audience, he's not wrong. The dumbest person I've ever met was an Albertan who had a 2nd grade reading level.
Oh, God.
The
fucker was 18, by the way.
Freedom Fist regular wears stylized body armor, carries an assault rifle or submachine gun in addition to his service pistol, baton, and riot shield. He's most important and iconic piece. He's what?
No, Randall, you're gonna love this.
His most important and iconic piece of equipment is his skull-shaped tactical mask. The tactical mask.
The skulls live again under their commander dice.
Tice
Mask theoretically deflects small arms fire, but its true purpose is to grant the fist regular anonymity to necessary to execute the regime's will without persecution, as well as intimidate the state's internal enemy, the people. Wait, if these guys are the government, why do they need masks?
Well, because
this isn't actually just Chad Walker being an idiot. There is like a psychological aspect of anonymity.
Yeah, I know that. I'm just wondering, like, what is this protection thing? He's talking about protection.
The big thing that he's too stupid to get is there's 2 reasons to wear masks like that. Actually, more like 4. The first is that
terrorism.
Well, because terrorism. The first one is actually because in masks like the mask you saw in that really bad drawing, you could put things like air breathers and, eyeglass so that you don't have to worry about gas, poison, or any particulates being thrown at them. And they can go through riot areas where they had to use CS gas. 2, you can use it for fear. I mean, you've seen some of those samurai masks where they have like lion motifs or something for them.
Demon faces, yeah. Yep. Demon faces.
Roman and Greek mask come to.
Yep. That's another reason. Another reason is also because it's useful for propaganda purposes because that uniformity can show we're all united as one force to crush our enemies. And lastly, the most important reason is Chad Walker's a fucking retard who doesn't understand that even villains have motivations and emotions, and he just sees them all as faceless monsters.
Anyway, while the Freedom Fist is the regime's most obvious instrument of oppression and frequently the target of most anti-regime derision, the fist's violence pales compared to the perpetration the regime's bureaucratic machinery. Oh God, the red tape strikes again.
So what you're saying is the most hated foe of all gay robots is Hermes Conrad, Bureaucrat 38.
Hermes Conrad, slayer of communist robots.
And capable of turning an entire slave labor operation into an outfit that only needs the labor of one overwhelmed Australian man.
So wait, this is confusing. So is Chad saying that labyrinthian government bureaucracy is a bad thing? I thought that's what leftists like.
Usually they do like government management, but he's stupid. Because he just accidentally admitted he probably liked Trump's pledge of, for every office I create, I'm going to cut down 2 of them.
The regime mandates continual sweeps for immigrants, undocumented peoples, and nationalized citizens who are unwilling to assimilate, all of whom are subsequently detained and shipped to internment camps where they are deported or put to work. Those who are accepted by their home countries are loaded onto cargo ships and shipped out. Those who are rejected by their home countries or don't have one or or how do you not have a home country?
Refugees. He's trying to use the Syrians and other people he's too stupid to remember, like the Rwandans.
Assigned to manufacturing tasks related to the American war machine in order to earn their keep. While the conditions of the internment camps are deplorable, staying there sometimes a better alternative than deportation. Many of those accepted by their home countries are refugees being handed over to the very despots they fled in the first place. Their deportation is usually a death sentence. Those who can neither work nor deported disappear without explanation, aka the gas chambers.
Yep. So, we're going back to old Joe McCarthy. Lovely. McCarthy's cognitive link between homosexuality and vulnerability to Soviet blackmail remains as powerful and profound as America's cognitive link between organized labor and Stalin-era communism. He tried to sound like a little big boy, but he also forgot McCarthy was also going after Hollywood, which had and still to this day has a pretty nasty pedophile ring, a gay pedophile ring.
Communists, no, they're gay communist pedophiles. The worst ill.
So it's probably a reason. Plus, he also drinks a lot. Like, no offense, just Midwesterners in general tend to drink quite a bit.
Shout out to Dan Schneider.
Like 24/7.
I learned that from Mike Stoklasa, so blame him.
Also, I like alcohol. I do love my alcoholic beverage.
So the regime urges loyalists to report anyone who manifests behaviors indicative of sexual deviance, which is not explicitly defined by the regime, but generally understood to be any sexual behavior not conducive to marriage, procreation, or promoting norms of male power and female submission. Does he think that your average U.S. citizen is a Catholic because maybe Chad Walker's Catholic?
Also, my question is, does he only someone that would have a this is like incel logic. This is incel logic of the way marriage works. Most married people that are even Christian, most married Christian people view it as a union, to where, you know, the wife is there to help out the husband, but the husband's there to basically serve and provide for his wife.
Yeah. And on top of that, married couples do fuck quite a bit, even if they don't want another kid. Like, isn't it at least like once a week or something?
I'm not familiar with that, but Chad,
I don't think of statistics like that.
I just know that Chad's never touched a woman.
I'll finish on with the deviants, Adam, and then I'll get to the last bit in this.
So something female submission. Okay, homosexuals, bisexuals, polysexuals, and transgender people are obvious marks, but so are women who are single for an overly long period of time, Saudi Arabia, or overheard casting aspersions on domesticity or childbearing, also Saudi Arabia. When these suspects are interrogated by authorities, the onus is on the subjects to prove their loyalty to America, as opposed to the state having to prove their treachery. The only reason he didn't spurg about the Constitution is he forgot it was in the Fifth Amendment. The regime has never executed someone over sexual deviance, but they certainly execute traitors.
Hold on. This part is where this is pity me. This is the pity me point. Leftists, artists, philosophers, cultural critics, globalists, and journalists who refuse to shill for the regime.
Shill? They actually use fucking shill?
Yep.
They're all shills. Are targeted, often funneled into the programs of already established for dealing with foreigners and sexual deviance. Loyalists cheer on the management of the country's problem people because the regime's casting of critics and cultural outsiders as invaders, traitors, and threats to real America is so effective. But many of those people are the enemies of America.
Like Emilio Acosta, who tried to sink peace deals between North Korea and the United States multiple times.
What about the repeating lying of journalists for clicks, just trying to cause disinformation and hostility in America just because they want to get a few more pennies.
How about Gawker, who went out of business because Hulk Hogan big booted them after they openly lied about what he did?
What's a Gawker?
Yep.
Loyalists rarely comprehend the scope or brutality of the regime's programs because it is kept relatively secret through gag orders levied against journalists, state-sponsored news cycles. I guess things like a party-ran news organization like BBC is a bad thing. Thank you, Chad. Thank you for reassuring my belief and emphasizing the crimes of foreigners and operational tradecraft hiding much of the incarceration and deportation of the program's infrastructure.
They're not sending their best.
Question. Do we want to skip over human chattel to the last bit?
Hey, why not? For legal reasons.
Yeah. Human cattle is
that name. Yeah. That name is still hilarious. Human chattel.
That's how Chad Walker sees your average menial.
It's pretty much people, not him.
So we're at the tipping point. America's at a critical juncture.
It's you, Biggie.
Oh, sorry, I stole your thunder, man.
America is at the critical junction. The construction of border walls and internment camps.
Even though the latter was under Obama.
Orange man bad.
Except that back then they were just called fences.
With me, everyone.
You know what? Just to piss off Chad. Come on, let's just chant "Build the wall." Let's do it.
1, 2, 3.
Build a wall.
Build a wall.
Build the wall.
Build a wall.
Build a wall.
Build a wall.
Build a fence.
Fuck you, Greg. Fuck you, Greg. I hate you. Fuck you, Greg. Fuck you.
It's either or. Fence or wall. I don't care. Let's make America great again by building that wall.
The purge of undocumented and documented immigrants alike. Kangaroo courts tried homosexuals and globalists and socialization.
Well, globalists kind of sometimes go that way, but most of them are just corporate greedy people.
This is an Alex Jones wet dream. This is, oh my god, he would be so happy.
But my thing is, when the globalists are cynical and thing, a globalist will do anything to stay in power. So wouldn't the globalists adopt to the fascistic mindset? Like, you know,
globalists are pure innocent creatures who are the superior future.
And they're not neoliberals that want your money.
Let's ignore how corporatists and globalists like Movie Bob are basically just fascists under a new guy. Seriously, look into some of his stuff.
All this is the build-up for fascism only possible conclusion. The systematic eradication of unwanted peoples. The regime vehemently denies this conclusion, and its spokesperson, Guaf at comparisons to Nazi Germany. Oh boy. While it's same breast deriding immigrants, specifically non-white immigrants, as cultural invaders, vermin, and subhuman who breed like rats. The bureaucrats and enforcers facilitating the machinery of mass incarceration and deportation also denied the comparison, seeing themselves as stewards of justice and upholding the law, simply following orders. Yet the operational costs of managing undesirables increase. The coffers of government begin to dwindle, and more countries deny the influx of American refugees as expended measures of being deliberate in secret memos and hushing conversations.
Just to kind of comment a little bit on that. I like how he's trying to rationalize that. No, look, they are Nazis because insert blah blah blah. Some Republicans were like Strom Thurmond back in like the 70s.
You remember that part where Donald Trump called people migrating to the U.S. vermin? You remember when he went up to a brown person and said, "Yeah, you're fucking vermin." You remember that?
I don't remember that, but I do remember he grabbed a Brazilian American woman by the pussy and then said, "This is what. Now this is how you immigrate."
Oh no!
I remember. The closest thing I really remember is there was this thing where he said, "Oh, all those people were immigrating from those shithole countries," and referenced Africa. But that's really it, if I can really remember that much.
That's the closest it's true. You could say, and even then, it's kind of a true statement because they're running away from their failed countries.
Yeah, I said that was the closest. But anyway, do you mind if I
don't you worry, Adam. Bitcoin's gonna fix Rwanda because I shit you not. I looked this up. Fucking Bitcoin's considered more valuable than their own fucking currency.
In all fairness to Rwanda, it's actually one of the better states in Africa.
It is.
No, I didn't say good. Anyway, the American people are not morally immune to the impulses of genocide. There is nothing special about them that renders this an impossible scenario. On the contrary, genocide and racial extermination are part of the American story that began the movement European settlers stepped foot on the continent.
Fuck you, Chad Walker.
Gotta show for that.
Let's ignore the fucking Aztecs, which are the closest you can get to a hardcore big E evil civilization in the that has ever existed.
Let's ignore
the Assyrians.
Let's ignore the Comanche. Let's ignore there are many tribes like the Comanche that were bloodthirsty marauders.
Let's ignore the fact that 90% of those were due to smallpox sweeping
96 to 98%.
And it was that was all accidental, just by touching them.
Yeah,
it was incidental unfortunality. Not to say there wasn't, we
were our colonial ancestors are assholes, but the Native Americans keep forgetting they were assholes back to some degree.
Also, this whole blame them, that was legitimately hundreds of years ago.
The big thing you could blame is the reservation thing, but we've laxed up on that.
And
I remember this awful case where this Native American kept going with the fact that you people destroyed my people, so he used that as a way to justify to himself why it was okay to run a scam that robbed people of their money. You robbed me of my ancestors of their land, so I'm going to rob these poor people of their money.
What are you going to say, Randall?
I will say that the Native Americans really did get fucked over.
They did.
It was unfortunate, yes.
We gave them nice blankets, though. Don't you guys remember that part? We gave them nice blankets.
Oh yeah, and we shared them with our fire water.
And don't forget how we showed them the glories of the casino.
I still do love, though, that the Irish were legitimately treated just as bad as the Native Americans were by the English half the time.
There was a reason why the English saw them as black people.
There was, in fact, in some places in the American South, they probably held Irish more in contempt than they did the black.
Yeah, but anyway, what was I? However, the American populace of 1986 does insist that it not have to see the what?
Don't worry, Chad
The American
Walker's a
populace
fucking
of
idiot.
1986 does insist that it not have to see. Okay, that's bad grammar. To see the effects of a genocidal project.
Word salad from an idiot trying to pretend he can write big boy sentences.
Society is already structured in a manner that effectively pushes the unsightly byproducts of capitalism.
Capitalism,
poverty, pollution, crime, health crises. Sight into neighborhoods of the people with the least economic and political capacity to fight back. These reservoirs of the country's collective sin permit the populace to blame communities there for everything wrong in the country.
Is this i.e. late stage capitalism, people?
Well, I mean, Chad Walker has openly admitted that he supports terrorism. Well, not openly. He tried to deny that, but
he tacitly supports. He very much has a. We know he supports terrorism. He just hides it under.
He's the first to turn kind of terrorism, ethical terrorism.
He hides it. He hides his support for terrorism under the thin veneer of weasel work.
You know for a fact he wouldn't support the Kansas City, what was it, the Oklahoma City bombing, because that was done by white nationalists, but he totally supports.
But doesn't he realize that? But in this logic, though, Timothy McVeigh bombed the IRS because in many ways that was a reaction to he saw as the police, the military overstep was the brutal treatment at Wake.
Then again, as it's literally stated by the FBI, most terrorist operations in the United States are done by white nationalists. So if he's supporting terrorism, he's supporting white nationalists.
Chad Walker, accidental Nazi.
Well, no, you don't understand, because he's doing the shootings, and you guys are forgetting this is supposed to be an ethical terror. It's actually about ethics and terrorism.
Ethics and terrorism.
Okay, can we have that? Let's have that instead of freedom fries. Ethics and terrorism would be a great.
Actually, it's about ethics and terrorism. That's.
Oh God! So I think this is yours, Randall.
Hey, Americans, even the descendants of settlers, are no more callous or cruel than any other people. It's just that, over the last few centuries, the apparatuses of state that enforce unfair laws, jail entire generations, and punish people for being poor are seen as just, benevolent, and necessary, while apparatuses of states that insist on equality, dignity, and providing for the most needy are seen as corrupt, malevolent, and wasteful.
I'm just highlighting the part of the paragraph that's one big fuck off sentence. It was most of that paragraph. Fuck you, Chad Walker.
Halo around the head of every police officer and CEO, and horns protruding from the skull of every jailed suspect and person who has never had a fair shake.
Translation: everyone else is dumber than me, and I guess I wrap. Oh, go on.
Sorry, I was just saying. Also, as someone who has come from a family of police officers and military servicemen and just other public servants, as well as CEOs, it really kind of just rubs me the wrong way when, I mean, yeah, there's a lot of I'm not even gonna pretend that everyone in this thing is innocent or even a good person, but just to label everyone as evil, you're just, well, that's pretty damn messed up, and exactly what you're blaming the other people of doing.
You know, honestly, I have an uncle that was a state trooper, and he had to quit because of all the fucked up stuff he saw. He had a near mental lapse, and he almost committed suicide. That's the level of stuff that our servicemen and police officers have to deal with on a daily basis.
My
Is that his police dog in the background?
People forget that one of the leading cause of death of cops isn't getting shot by crooks, it's shooting themselves.
One of the potential reasons my great-grandpa was a alcoholic, besides that just running in the family, he worked in the city's police department.
Ooh.
Suicide and depression are legitimately things that we were warned in the very first day of our college classes.
So a general sentiment among people is that the more severe the crime, the more severe the punishment. In the eyes of the loyalist, the real American, however, this logic has been reversed in a twisted fashion. To them, the more cruelly that the state's enforcers are to people, the more these victims of the state violence deserve to be punished.
Wait a minute, that's not a reversal. A reversal would be a parking violation is death worthy, but murder is a fine.
That would be hilarious to play out in an RPG, though.
If you ever want to play a game of Paranoia, that could be how it works.
No. We play a day to where it's opposite day for punishments for crimes.
Where treason, arson, and murder are all community service worthy, but jaywalking will have the entire police force on you.
Littering deserves you to get littered with bullets.
An unarmed child was shot by the police, so he must have been a criminal. Oh wow, they're using.
Does this remind you of anything?
Go die in a hole, Chad Walker. Refugees died at sea because we wouldn't let them port. That was Australia, you cunt!
Also Turkey and Italy.
Yep.
Also, my question is, countries are required to take in tens of hundreds of thousands of people, even if they're like Australia, to where literally every last person will strain the very precious water resources they have?
Only places like Europistan in America apparently have that burden. So they must have been murderers, rapists, and terrorists. Families were born apart at our borders and placed in cages, so they must be animals.
Does this remind you of anything?
Even though it turns out the kid that they filmed was not a refugee kid, it was just a child having a mild tantrum.
Also, I think actually what you said, Randall, does this remind you of anything? Could just be the title of this tabletop RPG. Does this remind you of anything? The game.
So, ethics and terrorism, does this remind you of anything? We have options now. When state violence occurs, the loyalist swoops in to defend it by dehumanizing the state's victims. And when cruelty is just and compassion is unjust, then genocide, in the minds of the loyalists, must be the state of moral perfection, as said by a guy rapidly fucking ODing on some type of psychoactive drug in his dad's bathroom.
War is peace! Freedom is slavery! Ignorance is strength!
You know, honestly, this is he kind of jumped to A even with his resulting things of the breakdown. He still in the context of everything. This was a remarkable jump from A to B when in reality it takes A through Z to get to things like communism and fascism.
It depends on education. Go on.
To the end and up to the American Certainty. Do you want to guys stop now or keep going?
Do you guys have any fire?
Going on, but I think this is a pretty good stopping point.
Well, when we come back, people, we get to see a buck-naked Robo-Man holding a flag facing off against the Legion of Faceless Goons.
Is he wearing assless chaps?
No, he's wearing nothing.
He's literally buck-ass naked. He is showing his Robo-Dong to hundreds of very bored Paul Blarts.
Little did we know this is actually the gay rights march.
Wait, is that Metal Gear Ray standing in the background there?
No, that's just that looks like it may be a Abram.
I think it's just a tank.
Aw. I was either hoping for a Ray or a Gecko.
Oh, would have been awesome if we would have had something like we would have probably had the original Metal Gear or Soul Lamper.
Oh man, this is just embarrassing. We're gonna leave you off on I'm just gonna zoom in on this.
The
very well-formed robo-ass.
Yes, I am.
Actually, it's not even that good. It's actually not even that drawn well of an ass. It's just
And it's pixelated
Just
as
looks
fuck,
weird.
indicating that Chad Walker, besides being delusional, is fucking cheap.
Also, look at the shadows on this guy.
I mean,
it just
come
looks
on,
so
Chad.
weird and awkward.
Shell out the good money for my gay robo porn.
I just realized that if you zoom in on his ass, it looks like a very angry alien face.
Oh my god, it does. The little eyes. He's got little eyes.
This could also make.
Oh god, it reminds me of the big bug, the big brain alien from Starship Troopers.
It's afraid. It's afraid.
Hey! Oh my god, that's too appropriate. Starship Troopers.
But my thing is, even with Starship Troopers, with the context of the book, it's not a fascist government in the book Starship Troopers. It's more of it's a very militarized society. It's extraordinarily militarized society.
It's a very militarized society that ripped off even more of Rome, if I remember right.
Yes,
but the movie was. I can't even tell if it was a parody.
It was.
What it was
Paul Verhoeven was full on doing a parody, and that's like, even if it wasn't, it's still hilarious.
It's just.
But it's Paul Verhoeven. He hates the shit out of fascists.
Yeah. I was just saying it blurs the line. It's a very good propaganda piece in the sense that you can't it makes you feel things, and you're like, wait, what did I just watch? Huh.
Oh man.
So are we gonna close out before we spark even louder?
Oh yeah.
See you next week with how Paul Blart fucked up the German invasion into the Soviet Union by eating all their food.
And if I don't appear at you, I'll have been taken by the state and shot in the back alley and put in a dumpster. Apparently.
I'm gonna go back to my forest of Alberta if you need me.
I think. Let's just hope that next week we'll see more robo asses. This is what we need.
But next week, I can tell you something I don't think any of us will see, which is the most important thing of this game: the fucking mechanics.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Oh god.
So maybe next episode we're not going to see any of the mechanics until probably episode 4 or 5.
We have 3 more chapters until we get to the mechanics.
You know the angry
and a lot of bad art too.
The angry butt cheeks is probably Biggie's real expression right now.
The angry butt cheeks would make a great profile pic. It would kind of deceive some people too.
Oh man, I don't think we have anything else to say. So.
That says it all.
Fuck off.
Anyway, see you. The handful of people who will see this. Hope you have a good day, and repeat the signal.
Repeat the signal. Chad Walker is a fucktard.
Orange man bad. Orange man bad.
Orange man bad.
War and peace.
Ignorant.